Turn you on with a switch. If I plug your little socket, you might grant my dirty wish. The lights are low, the door is locked, and as you open up onto my screen, I hope nobody knocks. A sticky mouse and tangled tail in this digital dystopia. Your circuits never fail. I'm signing in where I get off, and in this gigabyting kingdom, I'm the king of my own car. Cyber baby, if you show me yours, I'll show you mine. Cyber baby, won't you meet me at the corner of any space and time? Any space and time. It's a game we like to play with ourselves, and all I need from you is a little extra help, and let's just keep it between us so no one knows. Nothing's obscene, just some ones
and zeros.
and in the dark.
And in the dark,
We surf like sharks.
we surf like sharks.
There's a million
Good evening, Lizard Tree.
eyes looking for the nasty part.
So glad you could join me. Trojan horse to get them hot.
When you're fishing for the next one, you can show them my screenshot. Thank the username you've got a pretty face.
Tonight, my friends, is a special show I've been meaning to do for a while.
Meet me on the corner of any time and space.
Where I am going to engage the stream of consciousness for each one of us. Thank you very much, Lizard Tree. This is a song called Cyber Baby. I'm very proud of this. I produced this and orchestrated this with Michael Sherwood. It was sent to us as a single vocal with a click.
Any space and time. Any space and time.
Tonight, my friends, I have a set of stories and some things to read to you. And I want to start with a relative calm and an idea And before we even start the show, in the final countdown, I want to give you this moment. King Gizzard and the Wizard Lizard, I wish it was that. I wish we were that. But thank you. I appreciate all of you. Thank you for being here. Now in this moment, if we could all take it for ourselves, because we are ourselves, and I want you to engage with yourself, not as someone you think you are, but just to take that moment. That's why the chat's not up right now. That's why the countdown is rolling. That's why just the noise in the background. Because together, before we go on this journey, before I tell you what I'm going to tell you, I want you to take this moment to recognize that you are you for you because of you. Good evening, Resto. Good evening, Arachnid. Good evening, Lizard Tree. And to those watching. Tonight, before I start, I'm hoping you get a chance to look up.
Everything. This is where the intersection of all being angled or spun in an evolutionary scheme, flipped and set truly free. Suddenly, people were able to play out their most imaginative fantasies. Wealth, happiness, magical powers, being a unicorn robot. Before long, there were even people playing out actual comic book-like superheroes. And of course, once you have that, you're going to have the other side of the coin, the dark side. All those twisted folks who saw that it could take advantage in any way, shape, or form, never recognizing that the omniverse has a balance, no matter what. Which brings me to me. Just like anybody else, call me Joe Schmo for that matter. Live to think, love to read, and all for myself. Lucky enough to remember all of it always. Immediately after this schism, all the versions of me were able to share information simultaneously from the future in the past with my current, future, and past possible selves at any point along the outward spiral of realities and possibility. Simultaneous collusion amongst all paths. See this special talent, knowing and being the future and past of any possibility, to commune with all versions of me in no struggle with those other replicants with seemeth advantage. Inundating myself with everything to do with everything, anything. Science, medicine, politics, history, religion, they didn't make much differential. What mattered was information to be able to share as a commodity. In this universe and all things, they who control the information in the ripples control all that is waved, as it is known. Which is how this consulting business manifested. To consult with those who wish to align the ripples to get a grip on the possibilities, my business has exponential success. When you need to know the possibilities, there's only one sentient being you can rely on to provide you with all the comprehensive fragmented variables in your choices of past, present, and future spirals. That being is Joe Schmo. We are Joe Schmo. Receive the name and we will align one of our operative replicants into any dimensional placement or spiral evolution for all of your conveniences. There is no corner of the universe that are not licensed to consult omnipotently to enhance or completely rearrange the possibilities all of you and your most likely experiences could imagine. Don't hesitate, because you already haven't. Don't forget, now is not a time, as it never was and never will be. Joe Schmo, all of your realities manipulated with all of the knowledge.
It started some time ago. Pretty much it's just a role-playing situation. Friends of mine who knew that I enjoyed paying attention to history. And to the past. And a distinct experience set that I had, being able to comprehend minor adjustments, tiny little situations that most people would miss, that I could often see playing into a bigger picture, like a puzzle. It just fit for me. On this particular day, we were meeting online. This was the new function and new practice. This meeting would go as most would. Benign to some, if you were to just see me from the outside. But what we were doing was transformative, even if most of the people involved really had no clue, either before or after their experience, journey or otherwise. So as usual, we log on to what would seem to be just a regular old government website. Something boring. White background, blue outline. Typing that looks like it belongs in 1990. Good evening, Genevieve. I type in my login. I see the other participants. The usual fare. Short hair, collegiate type. Some of the new, inquisitive, and hungry initiates, most of whom would cajole, bother, otherwise make fun of me. Despite my position, that was the name of the game in the long run. Challenge authority. So it was to be expected amongst our ranks. Each of us came on, as one would, in a Zoom meeting. Our face and background either obscured or plain as day, depending upon our position and situation. Song Lang, so good to see you. And welcome back. On this day, it was pretty much a practice run through of things we had done untold times. It was almost as if we had gotten ourselves into this long-term presentation of a dance, going through the steps as if each step was how it should unfold, despite the fact that each time we rolled the dice or pressed the button, we were guaranteed a new illusion. One of the keys of the game I found over a lifetime of playing is that there are only so many sides to that dice, and no matter how many times you press that button, you're always going to end up where you're meant to be, and it's whether or not you accept that outcome. About the time I'm thinking these things and hearing the youngsters chat and the practiced jarheads regaling of their battle and covert practices, the commander came online. Not to forget that this is in some way, shape, or form a war game. We were all instructed to charge our headsets. At that point, I reached to the briefcase next to me. I put my thumb on its handle. I heard a series of whirring. And as usual, for a brief moment, I felt lightheaded. But I had come to enjoy the symptoms, where most still seemed to have the jarring sense that they were floating. I, on the other hand, I'd been feeling that far before I ever put a headset on. Started when I was young, laying in bed, right before my mother would get me up, and I could feel the world spinning. I could see it in my mind. I could see myself spinning. It wasn't that I was lost. It's that I was untethered and I didn't know I had one. But that's for another time. In any case, my experience is one of the many reasons I was chosen over time to be a adult babysitter of sorts, a leader in other fashions, though I am reticent to say that there is such a thing where we're going. because in the end, we all play the role we're meant to play. We cannot step too far outside of it because we are part of a domino-like effect. Every choice we make in the game creates another set of options. And although I am well aware of all of the support structure, there is never a time where I have found that it stood the tests, or at least was faster than me. Now, one of the things I have come to learn is not to rely on the other players, because in the end, we are playing a game against each other and against a larger system. But at the same time, that is kind of my key, and I'll let you in on this right away. My friends, I don't play a game. No, I follow Lao Tzu. I ride a wave. I drink of life. I accept. And I roll. And though sometimes the pains may seem overwhelming, no matter what, I know they are lessons that I'm garnering that give me the tools to get to the next level. And that is why, in the end, my avatar, well, it's renowned, despite it being the worst possible choice. Now, what's wrong with my avatar? Well, I thought it'd be funny when I chose that, not thinking that, well, that maybe playing on hard mode might not be the easiest thing. C'est la vie, as they say. You see, I play as the fool because I have always found the great moniker in that story, King Lear, where if you play it right as a director, the fool is actually the king, watching the whole thing going down and narrating. Good evening, Flezzy B. Hi, how's it going? Wes James, so glad to see you. Hey, Wes, by the way, hold on a second. I hate to interrupt the story, but let me just stop on by here and just bring Wes on into the old mod squad, because it's only fair. Come on, meow. Bow, 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 bow. Wes James, now the standard moderator. Oh, hell yeah! Thanks for being here, Wes. Thanks for taking part. Where was I? Well, in any case, I've been lucky in the game because I figured out that it's not a game. It's a series of experiences that you learn from by adding the experiences to your tool belt and raising in the levels. And that, my character, the fool, that avatar, it's an incredibly powerful tool. You see, everybody thinks the fool has automatically bailed out, lost from the get-go. And yet, they don't know he's already stepped outside the game, standing outside the veil, watching, taking part, pushing buttons, able to run here and there, giggling all the while because no one takes him quite seriously enough, until maybe it's just a little too late. And I have played that over and over and over again so many times, I don't know how many times I've done it, my friends. I really don't. Now they say the permutations are innumerable. But I would wonder how much our spirits, our actual entities, the things that make up our neurological patterns, the vibrations of us have actually, how much can that actually deal with? Oh, I'm sorry. I was too busy spinning the yarn, setting the stage for you. I forgot to tell you. This is not a normal gaming group by any means, nor is it normal wargaming or testing. No, my friends, this is an experience that every single one of us has been handpicked to be here for. Let's call it a think tank of sorts. Now, I am a little more informed than most because I am not initially meant to be here like the others. See, there's a couple here who were, well, let's just say, raised, farm bred to be right where they are. And some of us are anomalous outliers. I'm not alone. No, but in the network, we are the rarity. And we come generally with a heavier weight because, well, we present ourselves. That said, knock on doors, my friends, because sometimes those who answer are willing to answer your questions. I found that out. Especially because most of the time, they're very willing to take part in, well, philosophical questions about life and thinking, and, you know, when they're involved with things like thought process, viewpoint, or maybe they're in logistics and planning. My friends, you never know who you're speaking to, and it's one of the great gifts. Don't take anyone for granted, I can tell you that. But that's a story for another day. How I got here, to start with. The commander hit the release button so that the briefcase would open. I laid it down on the ground, lifted the lid next to me. A bright light shined into my eyes, and a small mirrored window dropped down. I looked directly into the window, and a red beam rolled across. I was verified. A drawer slid open in the bottom of the briefcase. And there was the headset. Now, most people would look at this and say it was just a piece of plastic, a thick, rounded piece of plastic, and it had some nice lighting on it. But I would say that they just hadn't been attuned to it yet, and that they weren't meant to see it in the first place, and that exposure to such a thing for too long a period of time might actually drive a normal person insane. But I'm not really a normal person, as we all know. So I reached down and grabbed the halo and put it on my head. It sits like a crown, and it has a tiny set of LEDs that roll around the outside. I guess they're LED. It looks like LED. It's pretty. It has a wonderful little UV glow that changes. And apparently it changes based off of the vibration of the spectrum we're about to travel to. But see, I'm already delving too fast. So I put the halo on, and the light slowly orbs around my head. Once, twice, and about this point is when most people in their first or second round, they might get ill, because the entirety of your being is teleported, per se. Now this syncs online with a group with a quantum computer. And that sync moment, they engage the weight of math that develops black holes. Now this set of quantum computers, it is not one entity alone, but rather a network connected by a semi-sentient AI. And I say semi because it requires a human component. You see, there is no better map than the human neurological network for what is otherwise known as the gateway beyond the veil. When we arrive on the other side by way of holographic teleportation, we are not the entity in the chair in our offices or in our rooms, but rather an avatar sent by our transcendental identity, our actual energy field made up of our neurological pattern. We gather in this space, a null void. Not unlike something you may have seen in a movie. But this is not a movie, my friends. We are outside the actual being of what you would consider reality. And what I'm going to tell you may shock you. But we live in an untold number of us's. You are you across many planes of you with many different options of you. And you are in connection with all of them because that is you. Every option that ever was, that ever will be. And this is how we slide around. Because, my friends, reality is and is not. You see, mathematically, what we found out is that there is a metaverse and an omniverse. Now, the metaverse is within us. It's our own spirit experiencing our own lessons, so to speak. And this is where the game comes into play, because free will is very much real, my friends. you can do as you see fit, as far as the parameters will allow. And I say parameters, I mean, once you have stepped outside the veil, you start to recognize that, well, things are a little more permeable, movable, adjustable than not. That's because, well, all versions of everything are sharing the same materials. Don't try to figure out the particle physics of it or the metaphysics of it. I gave way to that a long time ago, although I've studied it over the years to get a better grip. It's not as important just to know that everything is like an onion, that you can fix anything. There's more than a second chance. There's a gabillion trillion chances. And all you need to do is engage with the yes and the love. And I may sound hoo-ha at this point, but it's part of the gift of why I play the fool. Because I can always smile and giggle at the joke of the universe. At the omniverse. At the never-ending senselessness that becomes beautiful grace. That no matter how far we get down into the rabbit hole, we are always where we are. There is no escaping the time, because we are then and now and in the future. You can change the past with the future. You can change the now with the now. There is no set of rules. It's one of the beautiful things, and there's a deeper secret, my friends. Something even more majestic. Yes, lizard tree. We are all related. And it's one of the great gifts of being aware of the game, being part of the game, getting to fix moments, apparently. Although I would say we're just meddling. At least somebody's testing to figure it out. It's better than not. And they're not seeing it as alchemy, but rather science. And it has borne much fruit for humankind. And sometimes folly. But I would posit to you that because there are endless options, there are endless fixes. Beautiful patchwork of building upon mistakes. Because mistakes have been made. And let me tell you, when they are made, they are calamitous and terrible and filled with fire. And yeah, a butterfly flapping its wings, it sure does make a typhoon in Texas. So I was called to stand forward and give the general mission plan, as it was my turn at optioning the game. I said, urban warfare. We'll be using a Section 3 version. Full invasion. Repel. And counter intel. Rebellion and guerrilla tactic. Modern day, for us, alternate planes. To 20th degree axis, offset 100 degree axis, giving us a wide slice of pie so that we could jump around but not be too far off base. Now, what does that mean? You have to kind of picture are options of reality set amongst a slew of choices from a bubble, the skin of a bubble. So it surrounds you in 360 degrees. Now the math is much harder than that, but that's the best way to picture it. You're in a bubble, and you have a choice: up, down, left, right, corner, 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 corner. You know, where are you going to go? What axis? How much? What percentage? And that's how we ratio the game. Because that's how far we tell the computers that we want to skip around to figure out what options there might be. You see, in the long run, if we play in a field long enough, we'll see millions of options out here. We don't have to pick the Earth we know either. We can pick many other places. Although it all exists within the same plane, because that's where we do. I have to wonder quite often if the other beings get to do this on their own home worlds. I'll have to ask. I wonder if they'll tell me the truth. But yes, as Lizard Tree said, we are all related, because just beyond here, beyond the null, there are still two other layers. One a web, and the other, I call it the all. But in truth, it's us. And the best way I can describe it is that at some point, everything, all of us, every sentient thing decided that they were going to embrace life. Not as you and I know it, like walking around on the planet, but the experience, the choices, the smells, the feelings, and I don't just mean as you and I know it. I mean as it exists across every plane and every option. So therefore we'd already done this. And my understanding is we keep doing this. And maybe even those of us playing the game are just part of the game, doing this for ourselves, convinced that we are the original. I don't even bother myself with the quantum entanglement question, because obviously there are many of me doing this. Otherwise I wouldn't be able to skip around within and without the veil and on the plane of existence that I start from. Now, what allows me to do this when I have the halo on, and what allows me to play in an avatar, a transcendental state of being that brings me to my neutronic and protonic basics, a waveform, only enacted as reality when I resonate, essentially, at the right wavelength. And I become. I am observed. I think, therefore I am. It gets very deep, you know. That's why it takes somebody who can stand outside the norms and understand and perceive altered states of perception. Because you are the you that you make you of and for you. It's inevitable. And before we get to hoo-ha, I set about the group to engage. I manifested a desk and platform in front of me. I saw it kind of like Star Trek, so it was wraparound. The visual plane in front of me is where I could, in 3 dimensions, grab and pull, push and expand any of the grounds. Because the job is kind of like Dungeon Master. Make sure they stay within the properties of the game. And that's when we start again. And I bring the flood. Hello everyone, I'm AronMSound, and this is the show known as Lookup, the remix, where I interject myself into a conversation which most people don't want me to take part in, and by way of which, I extend it and take it somewhere it wasn't meant to go. And tonight, I'm sharing with you both a stream of consciousness story and a set of ideas to challenge and perplex. And now, most importantly, the main entree. I'm going to read you the gateway process and its assessment. It's not very long, but I believe that it should be read in its entirety in public, if it hasn't already been. I know that other people have, but see, I'm not a cultist. If anything, I debunk those things that aren't so true, and I bring light to things that are true. And one of the deeper truths that I can reflect to you is that what we do know about this particular reality is that it has, well, stuff you can do in it, stuff to do with it, that we otherwise would call hoo-ha and magic and metaphysics. But in fact, it's taken very seriously by great minds. And I don't mean just mine, because these are things I've found over time that used to be rumor and lore. But now, it's public knowledge. And it's whether or not you acknowledge that it is, read it for yourself, or find it for yourself, or go ahead and look at it, you can still, to this very day, access any of the paperwork from the Monroe Institute of Applied Sciences, who still functions to this day. I'll take you to the website before the show's over so you can check out the information about applying the gateway process in your own life. This is not secret. It's not a cult. This, my friends, is how we all take ourselves to another place, maybe another time. But no matter what, turns out we're always us. This was approved for release in 2003 by the CIA. Who are we? Let me shrink down. In 1958, Robert Monroe, a New York broadcasting executive, began having experiences that drastically altered his life. Unpredictably and without willing it, Monroe found himself leaving his physical body to travel via a second body to locales far removed from the physical and spiritual realities of his life. Excuse me. Streamer chokes while reading about the gateway. Sorry. Here we go. There's no try. There is only do. All right. Who are we? In 1958, Robert Monroe, a New York broadcasting executive, began having experiences that drastically altered his life. Unpredictably, and without willing it, Monroe found himself leaving his physical body to travel via a second body to locales far removed from the physical and spiritual realities of his life. He was inhabiting a place unbounded by space or time. With some trepidation, he wrote a book about his experiences, Doubleday published Journeys Out of the Body in 1971. Anchor brought out a second edition in 1977. Throughout the book, Monroe maintains the stance of a careful, objective reporter who often reports his own confusion in his unusual area. He relies upon personal experiences for interpretation rather than any occult, religious, or spiritual framework. In the 1960s, Monroe became interested in possible connection between nonverbal audio patterns and brainwave rhythms. From his long experiences with sound, he advanced from rotating disc circuit breakers to sophisticated custom-built signal generators and the production of tape recordings in which he has as many as 16 patterns of sound mixed together on stereo channels. Drawing upon his discoveries and the work of others, he employs a system of binaural beats to create a frequency following response, FFR, by the brain wave rhythms. Oh, yes. The FFRs not only gives some control over the brainwave emission of each of the hemisphere, it also promotes brainwave synchronization between the two hemispheres. In May 1975, Monroe received a general patent for this method. In 1971, the Monroe Institute of Applied Sciences was funded and located in the foothills of the Blue Ridge in Virginia. After he shared his findings with others pursuing the same interest, an advisory board representing several major scientific disciplines formed around the Institute. The Institute then developed a highly experimental program for the training of consciousness itself. What are we doing? We are instructing and training individuals in the art of switching perception. What are we doing? Let me start that over. We are instructing and training individuals in the art of switching perceptual modes, the art of becoming more conscious of one's particular inner resources, inner abilities, and most of all, one's inner guidance. From Samadhi and Satori to the Vision Quest and the Cloud of Unknowing, cultures in all times and all places have harbored a few individuals who reached and practiced profound levels of self-exploration. Most of these individuals practice within a mythology, an epistemological groundwork by which they could interpret and give meaning to their experiences. Present-day Western epistemology, just recovering from an entrancing flirtation with materialism, provides little in the way of a ladder towards the other perceptual modes. What investigation has been done within our current theory of knowledge is centered on the physiology of the brain and the possible correlation between the brain's physical state and the subjective state of the mind. First, brainwave profiles and then lateral brain specialization and hemispheric synchronization have offered potential tools for the description of the subjective state and the mind's operational function. Yet, in our work, we suspect that while the tremendous variety of subjective states may each have physiological correlates, the ability to determine these correlates lies beyond our present techniques. It may well be that, as Elmer Green suggests, that in his book Beyond Biofeedback, that the brain, as a physical mechanism, cannot register non-physical events. If this is the case, the Western idea of knowledge will have to be enlarged. But how? It is precisely this that we are investigating. First, we are training interested individuals to switch their perception to areas or fields outside the realm of our physical matter reality. I'll read that for you one more time. It is precisely that we are investigating. It is precisely this that we are investigating. First, we are training interested individuals to switch their perception to areas or fields outside the realm of our physical matter of reality. We call these non-physical realities. Then we examine the data that they bring back. Such examination presents problems peculiar to this investigation. Often the experiences in these non-physical realities appear to be and come from a qualitatively greater consciousness than our usual consciousness in physical matter reality. Therefore, in order not to miss or misinterpret important patterns and information, we need to take it to the qualitatively greater perspective into account, while at the same time, in order for the patterns and information to be useful to us here in physical reality, we try to interpret them from the perspective of physical matter reality. Basically, the only way to interpret this. Yeah, no choking. Thank you, Fledgeby. I appreciate that. Is through our limited sets of perceptions. There it is. It would be easier, of course, if all we would switch perceptual, if we would all would switch perceptual modes and rise into a greater consciousness. That may be the only way we can enlarge our ideas about knowledge itself. The only way we can create a mythology sufficient for the coming years. Our Gateway program provides the instruction, the training, and the environment for making this transition. On a wide scale, we have no idea how successful the program would be. On a small scale, we do know that it is successful for those who have the volition and courage and desire to rise into the truly unknown. How it works. In appearance, the Gateway program presents a puzzling facade. A group of 20 people stand around talking, stretching, and then they all enter a large room, lie down on individual mattresses, put blankets over them, put on padded stereo headphones, and become motionless. The room is darkened. For the first 5 minutes, slight coughs and rustlings can be heard. For the next 40 minutes, there's not a sound or movement save an occasional snore. Then, all at the same time, everyone sits up and looks around. Soon they resume their talking, stretching and running outside. This happens several times during the day, evening, and sometimes at 3 in the morning. Retreat center personnel often ask, what exactly is going on here? These individuals are practicing and participating in a progressive series of frequency following response recordings. The major component of these recordings is a series of non-verbal audio patterns, most of them masked by a pink sound, similar to waves rolling along a beach or wind slipping through the trees. There may be several patterns going on at once, or only one. The patterns may change slowly or rapidly. They may be complex waveforms, beating against each other, or a simple wave in one ear only. For the brain and mind are complex, and it appears that they may be coaxed into certain formatings. My apologies. For the brain and mind are complex, and it appears that they may be coaxed into certain formations by an orchestration of complex audio patterns rather than and by a static mix of audio frequencies. It is indeed an art. And by drawing from much practice and from hints we received, we have approached it from an artist's or creative engineer's view. Whatever works, we use and attempt to improve. Verbal instruction carefully synchronized with the audio patterns and the recordings demand that the listener not wait passively on his mattress for new experiences to overtake him. He must use a large amount of volition and concentration in order to cooperate with the verbal instructions and the conducive environment generated by the audio stimulation. From long experience, we know that the brain and mind do respond with great regularity to shifting FFR patterns. Some researchers have studied the brain response. They have noted in the brainwave profile strong and regular shifts in the frequency, the power, and in the amount of synchronization. For the most part, we have restricted ourselves to the study of the mind's response. Our interest, it lies here. The gateway program. We call it this because the series of techniques do lead to a gateway. A gateway into different modes of perception. From our observation, the individuals who become involved in this program find it both deeply disturbing and deeply satisfying. From time to time, one response outweighs the other. From participants run into what we call the fear barrier, particularly if they try to advance too fast. One way or another, this manifests as fear about the potential loss of the self as they know it. For this reason, the program develops along carefully controlled steps, each with a strong and positive base. This permits a self-protective mechanism to work, like a spacesuit. Hundreds of times, we have observed that when an individual begins to stimulate himself more than his level of adjustment will allow, he blanks out the experience. He feels either that he went to sleep or that he clicked out for a period of time. Perhaps the next time, or the fifth time, he repeats that exercise. He will remember the experience and then edge his level of adjustment, his homeostatic network, into a larger awareness. This time I'll do it without choking. But as we also see that as individuals advance through these stages, they develop a deep sense of self-worth. Much as a child proclaims his new worth when he shouts, "Now I am 7." So they feel the vital sense of growth and of enjoyment from new levels of ability, creativity, and self-control. Best of all, their interior sense of direction strengthens. For most of all of this takes readjustment, dedication, time, and occasionally courage. Yet as this inner process begins, as they learn to cooperate with it and encourage it, they often experience a sense of lightness, deftness, even a great playfulness. Focus 10, deep relaxation. In order to avoid connotations often associated with names, we use numbers to designate different levels of consciousness. The first series of exercises in the Gateway program and instruction trains the participants in the art of deep relaxation. Most types of interior exploration depend upon reaching profoundly relaxed levels. Even many of those who practice this art for years have found that they need to reach yet even deeper levels before the program becomes effective. The level needed is close to the lucid dream state. Our key phrase is body asleep, mind awake. At this level, the mind focuses on interior events in a different and more concentrated perceptual focus than in our usual waking state. We call this level Focus 10. The training level, combined techniques, ooh, boy, did they stamp over this on version? Oh, the training at this level combining 3 techniques. Something
Your patronage will not be forgotten. This person is a boss.
Whoa! That is super duper ridiculously kind. And if my other iPad would turn back on and stay, oh man, it's not charging, that's why. Wow, thank you so much, that's so kind of whoever did that. Why, I wish it wouldn't say anonymous. You're clearly not anomalous. No, you're anomalous. But you're not anomalous. So I'm gonna just go ahead and clip that and send it to me. Just do that. That's, whoever that is, tenfold for you and return. Thank you so much for donating and wow, That's really damn cool of you. I appreciate it. I will do something very soon with all this to add a new hoo-ha or doodad or some kind of device. I guarantee you that show, make it better, make it more creative. Let's do something else. I tell you, it's a big deal. So thank you. Thank you for being a patron to the arts. Which I'm finding out that clearly the gateway process is an art. The first and by far the most powerful is the FFR stimulation. We have found that most individuals who listen to these masked audio patterns with no instruction and no other stimulation could reach and maintain a level of relaxation beyond any conscious level. Yes, anomalous. It's both anomalous and anonymous. Hey. Too many words. Clip me! Human meme. Hold on a second. That deserves a... Alright. We have found that most individuals who listen to these masked audio patterns with no instruction and no other stimulation can reach and maintain a level of relaxation beyond any conscious levels they have previously had. It is for this that the patent has been granted. The second is a standard progressive relaxation technique. Counting slowly from 1 to 10, the participant relaxes in the environment generated by the FFR and tells his body to relax part by part. Sound familiar? Anyway, the third technique is suggestion. Sorry. After several repetitions, that's fine. No, making up our own words, it's a good thing to do. Because new words are good. We need new words. Anomalous. Make anonymous and anomalous all in one even harder. I love it. The second is a standard progressive relaxation technique. Counting slowly from 1 to 10 1 to 10. The participant relaxes in the environment generated by the FFR and tells his body to relax part by part. The third technique is suggestion. After several repetitions of this process, the participant finds that he no longer needs the FFR or the progressive relaxation exercise to reach focus 10. Is this self-hypnosis? Oh, depends on definition. If hypnosis is a generic term given to all altered states of awareness, and all use of suggestion, then this is a form of hypnosis. So in many other areas of life, let me read this again for you. Is this self-hypnosis? It depends on definition. If hypnosis is a generic term given to all altered states of awareness and all use of suggestion, then this is a form of hypnosis. So in many other areas of life, such as watching television, we do know that the brainwave profile of an individual in Focus 10 differs greatly from that of an individual in a standard hypnotic trance. What this difference means, we do not really know. Although I would gather that we probably do at this point, because this is old. In Focus 10, individuals find themselves thinking more with images than with words. Though we all do this in the dream state, few non-visualizers have achieved that level of relaxation that permits them to do it in the waking state. They find it a peculiar experience. Strong energies can flow in Focus 10. Energies similar to electrical or vibratory sensations. We call them non-physical energies. To establish more control in this state, the next series of exercises concentrates on building and using very simple imaginary tools for the gathering, focusing, and distributing of these non-physical energies. To their delight, the participants find that these energies do affect their physical reality. Interesting. This particular non-physical energy system appears to be connected with the channels between the mind and the body, for it is especially useful in healing and preparing the body for stronger use. It also appears to be the system responsible for much of the psychic attunement between individuals some distance apart. One of the most important exercises at this level involves distant viewing. The discernment of the emotional and perhaps the physical state of a familiar individual not in the immediate vicinity. Anyone in Focus 10 defines this to be a relatively simple exercise, aka remote viewing. Focus 12, high energy. After the participants have explored and used Focus 10 to their satisfaction, they advance to the next stage of the Gateway program, Focus 12. Occasionally, an individual in Focus 10 feels a sudden gradual heightening or expansion of his mind and possibly of his body. He also feels the strong vibration of a charged feeling. He knows unmistakably that he is in a different state of energy. Many people have had this experience in high dreams or accompanying out-of-body experiences. We call this expanded high energy state Focus 12. The next series of FFR recordings instruct and train the participants in the creation of a device that will, in the Focus 10 state, generate energy from this new energy system, then transport them to Focus 12, helping them acclimate to this new world, and finally bring them back to Focus 10. After a gradual, carefully controlled introduction to Focus 12, the participants learn to stay there longer and then to use it. We give them several exercises with the three major practical With the three major practical areas of Focus 12, we have discovered that the first is self-patterning. In this state, they can project changes they wish to have in the various aspects of their future being. An apparently larger self of each individual does appear to help bring about these conditions needing for making these changes. Wow, let me read these. The first is self-patterning. In this state, they can project changes they wish to have in the various aspects of their future being. An apparently larger self of each individual does appear to help bring about these conditions needing for making these changes. Wow, neat. Also, in this state comes more direct contact with this apparently larger self. It appears usually in the form of an external guide or guides, or as an inner voice, or an internal movie maker, or an inner knowing. One can ask questions from the most mundane to the most profound, and often this source will answer from an apparently larger perspective. This opens the door to great creative expression. With this resource, the participant's life increases in both responsibility and complexity. At the same time, he feels a corresponding increase in his ability to handle the new situation. After much practice in intensifying Focus 12, some participants have found that they can control out-of-body experience. They become identified with a second body, apparently composed of non-physical energy, and leave the physical body. After they have reduced their culture shock through more practice, then they find themselves able to roam through other energy systems. Focus 15. Much as Focus 12 appears to rise naturally out of Focus 10, the state we call Focus 15 grows naturally out of a strong and stable Focus 12. Yet at a different energy level, Focus 15 leads into a different set of energy systems, marking most of all of the non-significance of time. In fact, time as we know it no longer exists. Our explorers have reported that in one area of Focus 15, they have an ability to manipulate time. One-to-one. At the Institute, we have done much investigation of one phenomenon that can appear in Focus 12 and Focus 15. With great care and compassion, a strong guiding figure will lead an explorer out of the body, place him in a comfortable position, and watch over him while talking to us, using the explorer's vocal cords, thought patterns, and vocabulary. The onset of this phenomenon is several explorers, each without knowing much about the other, has been astoundingly similar. Even more fascinating is the fact that the information these sources give, all of it being a gentle and instructional nature, has a high degree of correlation. We have no way, of course, to remove all possible contamination of leakage between each explorer and between them and ourselves. While we do not promote this information or make any claims about its authenticity, we have been most impressed with its quality. Lizard Tree says that she left her body during high pain instants a couple of different times, but was aware that they were in the room. It wasn't a near-death experience either. Wow. Yeah, I've heard about this happening as well. My grandmother is the one who originally told me as a very young man, a child, about transcendental experiences and about her golden cord. Yeah, that's really wild. So I don't doubt it. I believe that it is a way that we do deal as, well, a form of robot, an avatar, a meat sack who believes it's real while believing that it's believing it's real. I can absolutely believe that. I'd be very interested to hear more, in fact. Individual tests. On the way to Focus 10 and 12, most participants encounter a few obstacles. A small percentage develop physical symptoms. If these persist, we recommend they leave the program for a period of time and concentrate on physical health and on a mind-body integration technique such as Reikian therapy, yoga asanas, or Tai Chi. Almost every participant at first has some difficulty maintaining waking consciousness. What triggers the loss of consciousness before they reach the lucid dream level of Focus 10, we do not know. We do know that when the participants practice it gently over a period of time, they learn to enter Focus 10 consistently. Some who have had great difficulty with physical and mental relaxation may have minds held tense to keep unwanted material repressed, a natural self-protective mechanism. At first, in the Focus 10 exercises, they either sleep or remain wide awake at what we call the Focus 1 level. Then, as they repeat the exercises many times, they learn to relax more deeply while maintaining consciousness. Bit by bit, in self-regulating process, they begin conscious assimilation of repressed material. For some, this process is a matter of hours. For a few, it is a matter of months. At times, they express and release a great deal of negative emotion. If an individual should pass our screening process who does have a great deal of repressed material and little ego strength, we do not permit him to continue. We are not practicing psychotherapy. Our task is not to repair, but to build on solid foundations. Homeostasis impedes most participants at times. Physicians use the term homeostasis for the tendency of the body to establish an equilibrium of functioning between all of the body systems. The equilibrium sets up an inertia, somewhat like a spinning gyroscope, that resists any new method of physical functioning, even if the new method is beneficial. Elmer and Alice Green have remarked that the term also describes the resistance of the mind to any new mental system. In the Gateway program, this resistance manifests as the thought and feeling that Focus 10 and Focus 12 may be interesting, but they are just imagination inside the head and have little to do with real reality. Interest wanes, and the mind keeps its homeostatic network intact. We convince ourselves that reality isn't real, because the real that we know is what we know. How's that? The homeostatic network may be threatened by existentially disturbing experiences. In this program, experiences of a larger awareness do come. Often they are overpowering, in a way not previously conceived by the participant. They can be overpowering to the extent they disturb the participant's concept of who he or she or they are. His homeostatic network is threatened. With guidance from themselves or others, the participant can assimilate the new level of awareness. If they do not wish to assimilate it, they can push the exercise experience into the background and preserve their present homeostasis. Stasis. Homeostasis? Yeah. Deep relaxation with the intent of personal growth appears to trigger an internal process towards better physical and mental health. Some participants find themselves spontaneously giving up tobacco, alcohol, drugs, even television. Can you imagine that? Others may go through an overdue divorce, change jobs, or move to another state. But as the participants approach Focus 12, his contact with the source of direction become clearer, setting up a feedback loop about the particular path. All he has to do is pay attention to these inner directions and exercise the volition to the following changes. And now I read you the Gateway Affirmation. I am more than my physical body, because I am more than physical matter. I can perceive that which is greater than the physical world. I deeply desire to expand and experience, to know, to understand, to control, to use such greater energies and energy systems as may be beneficial and constructive to me and to those who follow me. Also, I deeply desire the help and cooperation, the assistance, the understanding of those individuals whose wisdom, development, and experience is equal to or greater than my own. I ask their guidance and protection from any influence or any source that might provide me with less than my stated desires. And that, my friends, is an overview of what the Gateway process is, as presented by the inventors at the Monroe Institute of Applied Sciences. Now I'm going to take a brief moment to change the page. Because the next section I'm going to read to you, I've shown you, and I've read sections of it. But it is definitely the more astonishing of the pieces that are available to any one of us. Because this, my friends, is the full CIA report, handed in, including page 25, originally missing. This report was handed in to the Department of the Army, and I shall read it to you now. The date is June 9th, 1983. The subject is analysis and assessment of the Gateway process. I'm taking this page directly from the CIA reading library. And this particular version of it is from a very hard to find subsection of that library. And it's associated to the release by the Monroe Institute in response to the FOIA requests that were so prominent in the late 90s. Especially due to the fact that Monroe Institute still develops this process, works with the government, and in fact is willing to share with you, the public, any and all of what it can you too can practice the gateway process, which is why many of us believe page 25 was missing, because its application and what it suggests may trigger some of you. I'm going to warn you right now, what this report has in it challenges the senses of a religious mind or the sensibilities of someone who may not be aware that our reality is just a homeostatic sensibility. And what does that mean? It means that we are sure of our experiences because we decide that we're sure of it. I think, therefore I am. And in that mandate of ego death can occur, and it can provide a very healthy set of experiences. But if you're not ready for it, as the overview of the Monroe Institute's gateway process said, if you're not ready for it, it might F you up pretty hard. Mess with your id. Or you may just reject it altogether and not have the experience. Which is why all of these things take preparation. So, please, if you're not ready and you're attempting any of these things, take your time, be patient, and know that each and every one of us is already there, already has been, already will be, if we are. And that's the wonderful thing. And now, to the Department of the Army, U.S. Army Operational Group, U.S. Army Intelligence and Security Command, Fort George G. Meade, Maryland, 2755. June 9th, 1983, to Commander, U.S. Army Operational Group, Fort Meade, Maryland. Number 1, you tasked me to provide an assessment of the gateway experience in terms of its mechanics and ultimate practicality. As I set out to fulfill that tasking, it soon became clear that in order to assess the validity and practicality of the process, I needed to do enough supporting research and analysis to fully understand how and why the process works. Frankly, sir, that proved to be an extremely involved and difficult business. Initially, based on conversations with a physician who took the gateway training with me, I had recourse to the biomedical models developed by Itzhak Bentov to obtain information concerning the physical aspects of the process. Then I found it necessary to delve into various sources for information concerning quantum mechanics in order to be able to describe the nature and functioning of the human consciousness. I had to be able to construct a scientifically valid and reasonably lucid model of how consciousness functions under the influence of the brain hemisphere synchronization technique employed by Gateway. Once this was done, the next step involved recourse to theoretical physics in order to explain the character of the time-space dimension and the means by which expanded human consciousness transcends it into an achieving gateway objectives. Finally, I again found it necessary to use physics to bring the whole phenomenon of out-of-body states into the language of physical sciences, to remove the stigma of its occult connotations, and put it in a frame of reference suited to objective assessment. Welcome back, Songwei. I'm currently reading the report on the gateway process, as handed in to the Department of the Military, Department of the Army. I began the narrative by briefly, let me make sure. Finally, I again found it necessary to use physics to bring the whole phenomenon of out-of-body states into the language of physical science, to remove the stigma of its occult connotations and put it in a frame of reference suited to the objective assessment. Number 2. I began the narrative by briefly profiling the fundamental biomedical factors affecting such related techniques as hypnosis, biofeedback, and transcendental meditation, so their objectives and modes of functioning could be compared in the reader's mind with the Great Gateway experience as the model of its underlying mechanics. I began the narrative by briefly profiling the fundamental biomedical factors affecting such related techniques as hypnosis, biofeedback, and transcendental meditation, so that their objectives and mode of functioning could be compared in the reader's mind with the gateway experience as the model for its underlying mechanics was developed. Additionally, that introductory material is useful in supporting the conclusions of the paper. I indicated at the time these related techniques may provide useful entry points to accelerate movement into the gateway experience. Number 3, Niels Bohr. The renowned physicist once responded to his son's complaints about the obtuse nature of certain concepts in physics by saying, "You are not thinking, you are merely being logical." The physics of altered human consciousness deals with some conceptualizations that are not easily grasped or visualized exclusively in the context of ordinary left-brain linear thinking. So, to borrow Dr. Bohr's model of expression, parts of this paper will require not only logic, but a touch of right-brain intuitive insight to achieve a complete, comfortable grasp of the concepts involved. Nevertheless, once that is done, I am confident that their construction and application will stand up to the test of rational critique. Number 4, paradoxically, having gone to such great lengths to avoid trying to render judgments based on an occult or dogmatic frame of reference, in the end I found it necessary to return, at least briefly, to the question of the impact of the gateway experience on common belief systems. I did so because although it was essential to avoid attempting to render an assessment in the context of such systems, I felt that it was necessary after having completed the analysis to point out that the resulting conclusions do not do any violence to the fundamental mainstream of either Eastern or Western belief systems. Unless that point is clearly established, the danger exists that some people will reject the whole concept of the gateway experience in their mistaken belief that it contradicts and is therefore alien to all that they hold to be right and true. Number 5. This study is certainly not designed to be the last word on the subject, but I hope that the validity of its basic structure and the fundamental concepts upon which it is based will make a useful guide to others USA INSCOM personnel who are required to take the gateway training or work with gateway materials. Wayne M. McDonald, Lieutenant Colonel, Michigan Commander. The Gateway Experience, Brain Hemisphere Synchronization in Perspective. Number 1, Introduction. In order to describe the Monroe Institute technique for achieving altered states of consciousness, the gateway experience, involving brain hemisphere synchronization or hemisync, the most effective way to begin is to briefly profile the basic mechanics which underlie operation of related methods such as hypnosis, transcendental meditation, and biofeedback. It is easiest to effectively describe what the gateway is by beginning with a short description of the associated techniques that share some common aspects with the gateway experience, but which are nevertheless different. In this way, we can develop a frame of reference at the outset, which will provide useful concepts to explain and understand gateway by comparison as we proceed. Number 2, hypnosis. According to the theories of psychologist Ronald Stone and the biomedical engineering models of Itzhak Bentov, hypnosis is basically a technique which permits acquisition of direct access to the sensory motor cortex and pleasure centers, and lower cerebral emotional portions and associated pleasure centers of the right side of the human brain following successful disengagement of the stimulus screening function of the left hemisphere of the brain. The left hemisphere of the brain is the self-cognitive, verbal and linear reasoning component of the mind. It fulfills the function of screening incoming stimuli by categorizing, assessing, and assigning meaning prior to allowing passage to the right hemisphere of the mind. The right hemisphere, which functions as the non-critical, holistic, non-verbal, and pattern-oriented component of the brain, appears to accept what the left hemisphere passes to it without question. Consequently, if the left hemisphere can be distracted, either through boredom or through reduction of soporific semi-sleep state. External stimuli, to include hypnotic suggestions, are allowed to pass unchallenged into the right hemisphere, where they are accepted and acted upon directly. The result may involve an emotional reaction originating in the lower cerebral region, sensory motor responses requiring involvement of the cortex, and so on. Both the sensory and the motor cortices of the right cerebral portion of the brain contain a sequence of points known as the homunculus, which corresponds to points in the body. See Exhibit 1 on the next page. Stimulation of the corresponding area of the cortex causes intermediate response in the associated portion of the body. Consequently, induction of the suggestion that the left leg is numb, if it reaches the right hemisphere unchallenged and is referred to the appropriate area of the sensory cortex, will result in an electrical reaction that will induce the feeling of numbness. Similarly, the suggestion that the person is experiencing a general feeling of happiness and well-being would be referred to the appropriate pleasure centers located in the lower cerebral portion of the cortex of the suggestions, such as one that informs the hypnotic subject that he enjoys enhanced concentration of powers of memory, would be responded to in the right hemisphere by accessing unused information storage capacity normally held in reserve as a result of the left hemisphere selection and control processes. This aspect will become significant in the context of the gateway process, when attention is given to examining the way that hypnosis has been used to accelerate progress in the early stages of the gateway process experience. Number 3, transcendental meditation. On the other hand, transcendental meditation works in a distinctly different fashion. In this technique, intense and protracted single-minded concentration on the process of drawing energy up the spinal cord ultimately results in what appears to be creation of acoustical standing waves in the cerebral ventricles, which are then conducted into the gray matter of the cerebral. And here's a picture, a diagram as described before. Cortex and the homunculus. Something is wrong with this picture. There's a lot wrong with this picture. This looks like it's been messed with in this version. Now, I did compare this with the original version, and this is definitely it, but what I did miss is in the zoom in, somebody has played with the picture, and that's those aren't that's not in the brain. That's This is why we can't have anything nice. That said, this paperwork is true. There it is. Cortex on the right side. As a result, according to Bentov, these waves will stimulate and eventually polarize the cortex in such a way that it will tend to conduct a signal along the homunculus, starting from the toes and on up. The Bentov biomedical model, as described in the book by Lee Sinella MG, entitled Kundalini Psychosis and Transcendence, states that the standing acoustical waves are the result of the altered rhythm of the heart sounds, which are occasioned by prolonged practice of meditation. and which set up sympathetic vibrations in the walls of the fluid-filled cavities which comprise the third and lateral ventricles of the brain. In addition, according to Bentov, the states of bliss described by those whose Kundalini symptoms have completed the full loop along the hemispheres may be explained as self-stimulation of the pleasure centers in the brain caused by the circulation of a current along the sensory cortex. Bentov also notes that the most described symptoms start on the left side of the body, means that it is mostly a development occurring in the right hemisphere. Although normally a period of meditation involving intense concentration and practice for 5 years or some is required to bring up the Kundalini, Bentov states that exposure to mechanical or acoustical vibrations in the range of 47 hertz cycles per second for protracted periods may achieve the same effect. Bentov cites as an example repeated riding in a car whose suspension and seat combination produce the range of vibrations, or being exposed for long periods of time to these frequencies caused, for instance, by an air conditioning duct. He also noted that the cumulative effect of the vibrations may be able to trigger a spontaneous physio-kundalini sequence in susceptible people who have a particularly sensitive nervous system. Number 4, biofeedback. The third consciousness altering methodology. I'm sorry. Let me try that one more time. Let me get a sip of water in here too. Hold on. All the multisyllabic words. Number 4, biofeedback. The third consciousness altering methodology, which will be briefly described, is biofeedback. Biofeedback is somewhat unique in that it actually employs the self-cognitive powers of the left hemisphere to gain access to such areas of the right brain as the lower cerebral motor and sensory cortices and assorted pain or pleasure centers. Instead of suppressing the left hemisphere, as is done in hypnosis, or largely bypassing and ignoring it, as is done in transcendental meditation, biofeedback teaches the left hemisphere first to visualize the desired result, and then to recognize the feelings associated with the experience of successful right hemisphere access to the specific lower cerebral cortex, pain or pleasure, or other areas in the manner needed to produce the desired result. Special self-monitoring devices, such as the digital thermometer, are used to inform the left brain when it succeeds in keying the right hemisphere into accessing the appropriate area. Once this is done, the left brain can then produce the same external, objective measures of success. In this way, the pathways are strengthened and emphasized to such an extent that the left brain consciousness is enabled to access appropriate areas in the right brain using a conscious demand mode. Yes, Lizard Tree, it should. For example, if the subject wishes to increase the circulation in the left leg in order to speed up healing, he may concentrate with his left brain on achieving that result while carefully monitoring a digital thermometer connected to the left leg. When concentrated effort begins to achieve success, the digital thermometer will register an increase in the temperature of that left leg. At that point, the subject can mentally, left brain, associate the sensations of experienced with the result achieved and can begin to emphasize by memory recall. In this way, pain can be blocked. Healing can be enhanced. Malignant tumors can apparently be suppressed and ultimately destroyed. The body's pleasure centers can be stimulated, and a variety of specific physiological results can be achieved. In addition, biofeedback may be used to greatly accelerate achievement of deep meditative states, particularly for beginners who have no experience in meditative techniques and whose progress in that methodology is enhanced through effective visualization and external, objective affirmation. Display of the subject's brainwave pattern on a cathode ray tube has proven to be a laboratory-validated means by which subjects may quickly learn to place themselves in profoundly relaxed states characterized by the sort of quietude and singularity of mental focus associated with advanced meditation. Gateway and hemisync, number 5. Now that we have briefly clarified... Exactly. Number 5, gateway and hemisync. Now that we have briefly profile the basic mechanics of the principal techniques for altering or expanding consciousness, which share some of the objectives and or methods employed in the gateway experience, we may proceed to focus on what that technique actually involves. Fundamentally, the gateway experience is a training system designed to bring enhanced strength, focus, and coherence to the amplitude and frequency of brainwave output between the left and right hemispheres so as to alter consciousness, moving it outside the physical sphere so as to ultimately escape even the restrictions of time and space. The participant then gains access to the various levels of intuitive knowledge which the universe offers. Welcome back, Songway. What differentiates the gateway experience from forms of meditation is its use of the hemisync technique, which is defined in the monograph by Monroe Institute trainer Melissa Jaeger as a state of consciousness defined when the EEG patterns of both hemispheres are simultaneously equal in amplitude and frequency. Although hemisync seems to be rather rare and of only short duration in ordinary human consciousness, Melissa Jaeger states that audio techniques developed by Bob Monroe can induce and sustain hemisync with the Institute's basic Focus 3 tapes. She also notes that studies conducted by Elmer and Alice Green at the Menninger Foundation have shown that a subject with 20 years of training in Zen meditation could consistently establish hemisync at will, sustaining it for over 15 minutes. Dr. Stuart Twemlow, a psychiatrist and a research associate of the Monroe Institute, reports that in our studies of the effect of the Monroe tape system on brainwaves, we found that the tapes encourage the focusing of brain energy that can be measured, as with a light bulb, into watts, into a narrower and narrower frequency band. This focusing of energy is not unlike the yoga concept of one-pointedness, which we may translate into Western terms as a single-mindedness. Dr. Twemlow goes on to observe that as in the individual gets into the tapes beyond Focus 3, there is a gradual increase in brainwave size, which is a measure of brainwave energy or power. Number 6, lamp versus laser. Melissa Jaeger uses a metaphor to help clarify the process involved in the use of hemisync in the gateway experience. She points out that the human mind, in its natural state, may be likened to an ordinary lamp, which expends energy in the form of both heat and light, but in a chaotic, incoherent way, which diffuses its energy over an area rather than limited depth. On the other hand, the human mind, under the discipline of hemisync, acts after the fashion of a laser beam, which produces a disciplined stream of light. The stream of energy is projected with total coherence of both frequency and amplitude, such that the surface area of the laser beam contains billions of times the concentrated energy found in a similar surface area of the sun. Wow. Gateway assumes that once the frequency and amplitude of the human brain are rendered coherent, it is possible to begin accelerating both so that the human mind is soon resonating at even higher vibrational levels. The mind can then bring itself into synchronization with more sophisticated and rarefied energy levels in the universe. The mind, when operating at these increasingly rarefied levels, is assumed to be capable of processing the information thus received through the same fundamental matrix by which it makes sense of ordinary physical sensory input to achieve meaning in a cognitive context. Such meaning is usually perceived visually in the form of symbols, but may also be perceived as astonishing flashes of holistic intuition, or even in the form of scenarios involving both visual and oral perception. The mechanics by which the mind exercises the consciousness function will be addressed in more detail later in this paper. Number 7, frequency following response. To achieve synchronization of brain hemispheres, the hemisync technique takes advantage of a phenomenon known as the frequency following response, which means that if a subject hears a sound produced at a frequency which emulates one of those associated with the operation of the human brain, the brain will try to mimic the same frequency pattern by adjusting its brain output. Therefore, if the subject is in a fully awake state, but hears sound frequencies which approximate brainwave output at the theta level, the subject brain will endeavor to alter its brainwave pattern from the normal beta to theta level. Since the theta level is associated with sleep, the subject concerned may progress from a fully awake to a sleep state, provided that he does not consciously resist. As the brain strives to entrain its wave frequency output with the one which person As the brain strives to entrain its wave frequency output with the one which the person hears. Since the brainwave frequencies are outside the spectrum of sounds which can be heard in pure form by human ear, hemisync must produce them based on another phenomenon known as the brain's capacity for deducing beat frequencies. If the human brain is exposed to one frequency in the left ear, which is 10 hertz below another audible frequency played in the right ear, rather than hearing either of the two audible frequencies, the brain chooses to hear the difference between them, the beat frequency, thus availing itself of the FFR phenomena. And using the technique of beat frequencies, the Gateway system uses hemisync and other audio techniques employing the FFR phenomenon to introduce a variety of frequencies, which are played at a virtually subliminal, marginally audible level. The objective is to relax the left hemisphere of the brain, place the physical body in a virtual sleep state, and bring the left and right hemispheres into coherence under conditions designed to promote the production of even higher amplitude and frequency of brainwave output. Audible and perhaps subliminal suggestions to Bob Monroe accompany the various brainwave frequencies, which are sometimes rolled in together with other sounds such as sea surf to mask the sound frequencies where desirable. In this way, Gateway endeavors to provide the subject with the tools by which they may alter their consciousness based on their own volition over time and through the repetitive use of the tapes, so as to access, via intuitive means, new categories of information not available to ordinary consciousness. Number 8. Role of resonance. However, brain coherence through entrainment to beat frequencies introduced via stereo headphones is not only part of the reason by which the Gateway system works. It is also designed to achieve the physical quietude characteristic of deep transcendental meditation states, which brings about a complete alteration of the fundamental resonance pattern associated with the sound frequencies produced by the human body. Yoga, Zen, or transcendental meditation, if practiced long enough, will produce a change in the sound of frequency with which the human heart resonates throughout the entire body. According to Bentov, this change in resonance results from the elimination of what the medical profession calls the bifurcation echo, so that the sound of the heartbeat can move synchronously up and down the circulatory system in harmonious resonance, approximately 7 times a second. Bentov describes the role played by the bifurcation echo as follows. When the left ventricle of the heart ejects blood, the aorta, being elastic, balloons out just beyond the valve and causes a pressure pulse to travel down along the aorta. When the pressure pulse reaches the bifurcation in the lower abdomen, which is where the aorta forks into two to go into the legs, part of the pressure pulse rebounds and starts traveling up the aorta. If in the meantime the heart ejects more blood and a new pressure pulse is traveling down, these two pressure points will eventually collide somewhere along the aorta and produce an interference pattern. Interesting. By placing the body in a sleep-like state, the Gateway tapes achieve the same goal as meditation in that it places the body in such a profoundly relaxed state that its bifurcation echo slowly fades away as the heart lessens the force and frequency with which it pushes blood into the aorta. The result is a regular, rhythmic sine wave pattern of sound which echoes throughout the body and rises up into the head in sustained resonance. The amplitude of the sine wave pattern, when measured with a sensitive seismograph type instrument, is about 3 times the average of the sound volume produced by the heart when it is operating normally. Give me 1 second. Apparently, one of the producers needs my attention. Let me make sure I'm not rolling over them. I can hear them, but I cannot see them because they are too tiny. Well, they'll have to deal for the moment. This might be a good time to take a brief break. Give me a moment, folks. I'm going to take a brief pause for the cause. And I will shortly return. Now, don't go anywhere, because we will read the rest of this. We're only on page like 6. But that said, yeah, baby producer. Yes, indeed. But that said, let me bring something to you that'll maybe break up the vibe a little bit. Something I think everybody truly tends to enjoy, and I'm still not sure exactly why, but it's okay. It's okay. It's fine. I do enjoy this nonetheless. Stand by. I'll be back shortly.
To swing records at bedtime.
Hey there, dude ladies, I'm Chad Chatterton, as you well know. Welcome back. You can find me at Demon and Gorge, Dragon Foreskin at both 4chan and Twitch, occasionally playing some Roadblocks and, the occasional Fortnite. Anyway, today on our show, we got a great episode where this fine young lady dude teaches you all, after you're done licking your man's chode and making him a sandwich, to be a more beautiful person. So, let's get at it. Let me just show you the man intro. Yeah, so amazing day today. So glad you could be here. Make sure to check me out. I'm Chad Chatterton, as you well know. And, once again, you can find me at Demon Bumpy Foreskin. Demon Bumpy Dragon. Demon Foreskin. Demon Bumpy. I'm sorry, they keep blocking my account, so I gotta keep track. Now it's Demon Bumpy Engorged Dragon Foreskin 2 at 4chan and Twitch. Where you can find me playing Roblox and the occasional Fortnite. All right. So what we're talking about today is how, after you're done licking your man's chode, you can figure out how to make a proper sandwich and look more beautiful. And this fine young lady, dude, she has a plan. Very, very current, up-to-date ideas. So let's get at it. All right.
I'm going to talk to you this morning about the way you look.
Yeah, she knows.
Now, I've heard
Look
it
at her.
said that
Look at her
we
shoulders.
attach too much importance to our appearance.
Oh, there's never not too much important about your appearance. Now, don't pay attention to my appearance. I mean, because look, okay? I bathe. Look, men, don't believe the hype. Women love your brand. And more than 2 wipes? Are you kidding me? That's the libtard agenda.
But that isn't true. After all, the way we look exerts so much influence on the way we feel, and on
That's
the way
right.
other people feel about us, that it really is very important.
See, this lady dude is speaking to preach gospel. She knows what's going on. She knows that, how you look is how I feel, okay? So how you look makes me feel a way. Get it together. Men, when she's done with your chode, make sure you like and subscribe, enjoy, and have her make me a sandwich too, all right? And by the way, can we give her some props? Can we give her some props? Can I get the chat some props? Like and subscribe, but can we get some props for her really fashionable attire? All right. Don't forget, you can find me at what is it now? Have I been banned again? No, it's still the same. All right, at Demon Bumpy Engorged Dragon Foreskin 2. That's Demon Bumpy Dragon Engorged Foreskin 2 at Twitch. and 4chan.
When I talk about good appearance or good grooming or looking your best, you probably think immediately of clothes or hairstyle or makeup.
No, I immediately think about how you groom that nasty viscous thing you got between your legs. Ew! Ew, ladies. I mean, duh. Who wants to go to some place that you keep like they tucked down in there? You pee from that hole. Get it together, women. And men, if they call you a munch, you're probably bringing them some kind of pleasure. Duh, bruh. Duh, bruh. Okay? Bruh? Bruh, you hear me now? Am I making sense? Like, do I make any sense? No? Yeah? No? Look at you. Don't forget you can like and subscribe. You know where you can find me. At Demon Bumpy and Gorge Foreskin Dragon 2. Twitch and 4chan.
Well, I realize that those things are especially interesting to you, and they are important, and I am going to talk about them.
Oh, good. I appreciate that she's clear with her intentions and how she feminizes the woman concept of her talking points. Because she knows that in the future, there's going to be a big problem with women not looking happy enough for my pleasure.
Please remember that they are just really the trimmings. Just like the icing on the cake. If the icing is very good, well, that's fine. But if the cake itself isn't good, you'd soon lose interest in the...
That's right. Let me talk about this for a hot second. Let me give a hot take. Last time my mom made me a cake, it tasted like crap, and I said, what's wrong with this icing? And she told me, go back down to the basement, okay? And I said, no. Mom, you can find me or like and subscribe at Demon and Gorge Foreskin Dragon 2, Twitch and 4chan. Let me know if you want to play some Fortnite.
So let's start with the cake and come back to the trimmings later. Basically, of course.
Ladies, when you're talking about my chode, which is just a metaphor, the cake is just a metaphor for my chode. We want the trimmings, okay? Give up the trimmings. It's just fair. I mean, I didn't make you like that. But you sure do make me and all the rest of us dudes feel a certain way. So you should just fall in line, because that's what it's about. Okay? All right. I mean, because that's what logic is, okay?
And intelligent physical
Like and subscribe.
care are the foundations of all beauty. We all want a lovely skin, shining eyes.
And you know what gets a lovely skin? When my chode Bangkok's on your little like pearly. You know, why don't we just get to the point? You should just be right in the face with it. You know? Just take it to the face. Why? Can I take a hot take? Can I get a hot take? Let me give you a hot take. Like and subscribe.
Smile and loads of pep, but we can't have them except in a healthy, clean body. And I mean clean.
Yeah, and men, that's what you want, is a healthy, clean body. Men want a healthy, clean body, ladies. So when you're womening, lady dudes, make sure that you don't lady dude with all the lady dudes or all the dudes. All right? Body count matters. Not to me. Because it doesn't matter to me. Because I'm different. But I care. So dudes, ladies, lady dudes, get it together. And if you follow, like, the word, you'll know. You're not supposed to be sharing women. Ladies, you're not supposed to be doing the things with other, when you're laying down. Okay? Am I clear? Okay, great. Good. Because I really, I want you to understand something. Okay? Got it? Like totally? You got it? You understand? Like and subscribe.
Demon Bumpy Foreskin Engorged Dragon 2. Twitch and 4chan.
Remember, you can't have good looks without soap and water. There's no...
Hey, that's the truth. Wash your bits. I don't want to smell that. It's about my smell. Look, this is what's real, okay? Deal with it. If you can't deal with it, you're probably just a libtard. After I'm done oiling my guns to make sure that you don't feel fear from the things that might happen or might not, okay? Because I'm doing my man stuff over here. I'm being manly for you. Let me just play my video games, okay? You go wash things. Look, she's talking about soap. You know what that is. You do that with your lady parts. I don't know what they are. Leave your viscous parts to you. I don't want to know about that. Just let me be my man self, okay?
Hey folks, what's happening? AronMSound here in Detroit. We've walked down from the bus to the American Coney Island, let's see, what is that? Yeah, it's American Coney Island Restaurant. That's actually one of the officials. It's been open since 1917. We're actually going to do the taste test challenge for ourselves because everybody at our bus happens to be a huge Lafayette fan because they're here from Detroit. And Quincy and I, we're from LA. We don't know the difference. We're not born here. Nope. You know, we don't have a rather or a druther. So we're going to just do the blind. It's not really blind. I mean, let's count the back. In my case, legally, but yeah, both of us are legally blind, so I think that counts. Yeah, sure. That counts. So we're gonna go try the American, and then I think later on, probably tomorrow night, we're gonna try the Lafayette, the Lafayette Coney, which is next door. I've already had it. I don't know if you guys. I've had Lafayette twice. Yeah. Nice. I'm excited for the American actually because technically, it's the winner. Technically, yes. Yeah, we can't say for sure, but I'm fucking hungry. Yeah. So let's eat.
Now this is friends helping friends. That's what. Yeah, it's still early. It's like 11 o'clock at night. They've been having a great time all day.
I love walking in cities like this.
Well, the night.
Brief story about this video as I play it. Shout out to M. Benelli. You can find him at Bonelli. He left a comment on this because he's actually somewhere in this video, and it turns out he still to this day is an inline skater, and he does videos of inline skate parks. But how weird is that? Small world.
Life of Brussels.
Yeah.
The nightlife of Brussels is pretty darn good too.
We cannot let fear be our guide. Oh shit.
Is that an ambulance? These are ambulances. Oh shit. Woo!
Oh shit. We got some shit going down.
Oh. It's exciting. I don't know what's going on. It has rollerblades. They're Belgian. It's exciting. There's blades flying everywhere. Blades.
Blades of rolling.
Wow, look at this though, man. This is incredible. Dangerous routing of a high-speed rollerblader? Wow. That's intense. So Quincy, is this going to deter you now from, high-speed rollerblading down the highway?
Possibly, yes.
Is it possibly that means that there's still a maybe in there?
There's still a maybe. Limited to what you choose to do in and out of the moment.
This is very true, and that includes breaking your ass.
Yes. Busting that ass.
Busting it.
Eating shit.
Eating shit.
Yes. We hope they're okay.
Yeah. It looks like they are. It looks like they're kind of fighting.
Yeah.
It looks like they're actually kind of fighting to help.
Right. Rescue crew and systems involved.
There's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff. It is cool though. It's a roller bike parade. I've now explained my conundrum, my question. It's a roller bike parade. Pretty dope. Totally looks like the aftermath of something. We just missed
The rapture.
the rapture. Where'd everybody go? The only thing left is the wandering lost souls. Who'd buy a suit from this guy?
I know, right?
Not me, that's for sure. I'd be a private.
Kind of a Metro Sinister.
I know, he's like, you're not going to buy this suit from me? Weird.
Lao Tue Infiniz Terra? No clue. It's probably something important I should know.
This is Quincy's beer. This is Quincy. Quincy's beer. Quincy. If I put it in frame with the beer, it's almost the same size if you measure it. Quincy and the beer.
You cannot let fear be our guide.
Ask me where I am today. It's very likely that I don't know. Ask me where I am today. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19.
I apologize for the delay. There was someone trying to press buttons. I may have come on a little earlier than I planned, because this producer is still learning the ropes. But that's fine. We'll train. It happens. Let me turn this off so. There we go. By the way, this is once again Ruby, if you're not familiar with our newest producer, who's in the Zoomies right now, apparently. Yes, Kitty. She is the newest addition to the production family. Needless to say, she's still learning the ropes and has to figure out which buttons to push. She doesn't really seem to care. It's concerning. She's more interested in the little ball in the background, but that's fine. Yes, she has a sweet baby. She is a very sweet baby. She's hilariously vocal, and she does these very funny things. She's incredibly springy. She's built like a little tiny spring, so she does Spider-Man moves, even though she's only about 5 inches long. It's amazing to watch. Boop! Boop! Anyhow, we were in the middle of something important, I think. Let me bring it up. I may have to break this into 2 nights. We shall see. Let me shrink myself down. Haven't said it in a while. In nocturne. There we are. Pull the track back. Let's see, we're at number 8, the role of resonance. We might have covered this, but it's worth reading it again. However, brain coherence through entrainment to beat frequencies introduced via stereo headphones is only part of the reason why the gateway system works. It is also designed to achieve the physical quietude characteristic of deep transcendental meditative states, which bring about a complete alteration of the fundamental resonance pattern associated with the sound frequencies produced by the human body. Yoga, Zen, or transcendental meditation, if practiced long enough, will produce a change in the sound frequency with which the human heart resonates through the entire body. According to Bentov, this change in resonance results from elimination of what the medical profession calls the bifurcation echo, so that the sound of the heartbeat can move synchronously up and down the circulatory system in harmonious resonance approximately 7 times a second. Bentov describes the role played by the bifurcation echo as follows. When the left ventricle of the heart ejects blood, the aorta, being elastic, balloons out just beyond the valve and causes the pressure pulse to travel down along the aorta, which then the pressure pulse reaches the bifurcation in the lower abdomen, which is where the aorta forks in two to go into the legs. Part of the pressure pulse rebounds and starts traveling up the aorta. If in the meantime the heart ejects more blood and new pressure pulse is traveling down, these two pressure points will eventually collide somewhere along the aorta and produce an interference pattern, which is, by the way, the interference pattern is how reality is built or develops. Physical reality, that is. By placing the body in a sleep-like state, the gateway tapes achieve the same goal as meditation, in that it places the body in such a profoundly relaxed state that the bifurcation echo slowly fades away as the heart lessens the force of frequency with which it pushes blood into the aorta. The result is a regular, rhythmic sine wave pattern of sound which echoes throughout the body and rises up into the head in sustained resonance. The amplitude of the sine wave pattern, when measured with a sensitive seismograph type instrument, is about 3 times the average of the sound volume produced by the heart when it's operating normally. Brain stimulation. Bentov's biomedical model shows that this resonance is of considerable importance since it is directly transmitted to and it impacts upon the brain. The resulting vibration is received and transmitted into the brain itself via the fluid-filled third and left ventricles located above the brainstem. An electromagnetic pulse is then generated which stimulates the brain to raise the amplitude and frequency of brainwave output, just as Dr. Twemlow observed in his research on the effects of the hemisync tapes. Although the brain is contained in a tight membrane called dura, which is in turn cushioned by a thin layer of fluid located between it and the skull, as the coherent resonance produced by the human heart in a state of profound relaxation reaches the fluid layers surrounding the brain, it sets up a rhythmic pattern which the brain moves up and down approximately 0.005 to 0.0010 millimeters in a continuous pattern. The self-reinforcing character of resonant behavior accounts for the body's ability to sustain this movement despite the minimal level of energy involved. In this way, the entire body, based on its own micromotion, functions in a tuned vibrational system, which transfers energy in a range of between 6.8 and 7.5 hertz into the Earth's ionic sphere etheric cavity, which itself resonates at about 7 to 7.5 hertz. Of this process, Bensov states, this is occurring at a very long wavelength of about 40,000 kilometers, or just about the perimeter of the planet. In other words, the signal from the movement of our bodies will travel around the world in about 1/7 of a second through the electrostatic field in which we are embedded. Such a long wavelength knows no obstacles, and its strength does not attenuate much over large distances. Naturally, it will go through just about anything: metal, concrete, water, and the fields making up our bodies. It is the ideal medium for conveying a telepathic signal. Consequently, the gateway process is designed to rather rapidly induce a state of profound calm within the nervous system, and to significantly lower blood pressure, to cause the circulatory system, skeleton, and other physical organ systems to begin vibrating coherently at approximately 7 to 7.5 cycles per second. The resulting resonance sets up a regular, repetitive sound wave, which propagates in consonance with the electrostatic field of the Earth. The producer doesn't give a damn. I digress. Energy entrainment. Number 10. As the body is turned into a coherent oscillator, vibrating in harmony with the surrounding electrostatic medium, the specific exercises, including the gateway tapes, enjoin the participant to build up the energy field surrounding his body, presumably by using energy from the Earth's field, which the body is now in training because of its ability to resonate with it. This puts the body's energy field in a homogeneity with its surrounding environment and promotes a movement of the seat of consciousness into the surrounding environment, partly in response to the fact that the two electromagnetic mediums are now single energy continuum. Thus, the same process which moves the brain into focused coherence at steadily higher levels of frequency and amplitude so as to entrain analogous frequencies in the universe for data collection also promotes enhancement of bodily energy levels to a point adequate to permit the subject to experience an out-of-body movement when they are ready to do so. More will be said about this in the topic later. In addition, by resonating with the Earth's magnetic sphere, the human body creates a surprisingly powerful carrier wave to assist the mind in communication activity with other human minds similarly tuned. Well, to be frank, the executive producer is kind of neither here nor there. And the associate producer, who should be able to speak the same language, is quite confused at the silly state of the new hire. Now, I'm sure they're going to work it out. But between them, it seems to be fine. But there is some definite confusion on the part of the little one as to where they need to be, when they need to be there. You know, the usual, you know, new into the workplace kind of scenario. You know, it's cool though. They'll figure it out. They're figuring it. Creative people, all creative characters. And clearly the new producer is trying to add their flair today. So I'm letting it fly for now. I'll go with that. Where were we? Number 11, consciousness and energy. Before our explanation can proceed any further, it is essential to define the mechanism by which the human mind exercises the function known as consciousness, and to describe the way in which the consciousness operates to deduce meaning from the stimuli which it receives. To do this, we will first consider the fundamental character of the material world in which we have our physical existence in order to accurately perceive the raw stuff with which our consciousness must work. The first point which needs to be made is that the two terms, matter and energy, tend to be misleading if taken to indicate two distinctly different states of existence in the physical world that we know. Indeed, if the term matter is taken to mean solid substance as opposed to energy, which is understood to mean a force of some sort, then the use of the former is entirely misleading. Science now knows that both the electrons which spin in the energy field are located around the nucleus of the atom, and the nucleus itself are made up of nothing more than oscillating energy grids. Solid matter, in the strict construction of the term, simply does not exist. Rather, atomic structure is composed of oscillating energy grids surrounded by other oscillating energy grids, which orbit at extraordinarily high speeds. In his book, Stalking into Wild Pendulum, Itzhak Bentov gives the following figures. The energy grid which composes the nucleus of the atom vibrates at approximately 10 to the 22nd power hertz, which means 10 followed by 22 zeros. At 70 degrees Fahrenheit, an atom oscillates at the rate of 10 to 15 to the power hertz. An entire molecule, composed of a number of atoms, bound together in a single energy field, vibrates in the range of 10 to the 9th power hertz. A live human cell vibrates at approximately 10 to the 3rd power hertz. The points to be made is that the entire human being, brain, consciousness, and all that is, like the universe which surrounds us, nothing more or less than an extraordinarily complex system of energy fields. The so-called states of matter are actually variances in the states of energy, and human consciousness is a function of the interaction of energy in two opposite states, both motion and rest, or motion versus rest, in a manner described in the following paragraph. Number 12. Holograms. Energy creates, stores, and retrieves meaning in the universe by projecting or expanding at certain frequencies in a three-dimensional mode that creates a living pattern called a hologram. The concept of the hologram can be most easily understood by using an example cited by Bentov in which he asks the reader to visualize a bowl full of water into which 3 pebbles are dropped. As the ripples created by the simultaneous entry of the 3 pebbles radiate outward towards the rim of the bowl. Bentov further asks the reader to visualize that the surface of the water suddenly flash frozen so that the ripple pattern is preserved instantly. The ice is removed, leaving the 3 pebbles still laying at the bottom of the bowl. Then the ice is exposed to a powerful, coherent source of light, such as a laser. The result would be a 3-dimensional model of representation of the position of the 3 pebbles suspended in midair. Holograms are capable of encoding so much detail that, for example, it is possible to take a holographic projection of a glass swamp water and view it under magnification to see small organisms not visible to the naked eye. When the glass of water itself is examined, the whole concept of holography, despite its scientific implications, has only been known to the physicists since the underlying mathematical principles were worked out by Dennis Gaber in 1947. He later won a Nobel Prize for his work. Laboratory demonstration of Gabor's work only occurred years later following the invention of the laser, as biologist Lyle Watson explains. And cats see stuff we don't because they're seeing in a different scope of color, and their cones and the rods in their eyes work very differently. Also, the way that their optic nerves receive that information, how it's interpreted, they see spectrum of light we simply don't see. That's why they see better in the dark. And also the fact that their irises can expand astonishingly. Lyle Watson, the biologist, said, "The purest kind of light available to us is that produced by laser, which sends out a beam in which all the waves are of one frequency, like those made by an ideal pebble in a perfect pond. When two laser beams touch, they produce an interference pattern of light and dark ripples that can be recorded on a photographic plate. And if one of the beams, instead of coming directly from the laser, is reflected first on off an object such as a human face, the resulting pattern will be very complex indeed, but it can still be recorded. The record will be a hologram of the face. Number 13, the part encodes the whole. Of further importance is the fact that even if we dropped our frozen hologram of the ripple pattern on the floor and broke it into a number of pieces, each individual piece would recreate the entire holographic image all by itself. The smaller the piece, the fuzzier and more distorted would be the resulting holographic projection, but the fact remains that a whole projection would nonetheless be made. The key to creating any hologram is that energy in motion must interact with energy in a state of rest, non-motion. In the foregoing example, the pebbles represent energy in motion, while the water, before its agitation by the pebbles, represent energy at a state of rest. To activate or in effect to perceive the meaning of the holograph, energy, in this case a coherent light source such as a laser beam, must be passed through the interference pattern, generated by interaction between the moving energy and the energy at rest. In the simple example given by Bentov, this requirement was fulfilled by holding the frozen interference pattern in front of the coherent light to project the three-dimensional holographic image, its meaning, into space. As Marilyn Ferguson, editor of the Brain Mind Bulletin, tells us, another feature of a hologram is its efficiency. Billions of bytes of information can be stored in a tiny space. The pattern of the holographic photograph is stored everywhere on the plate. Number 14, the consciousness matrix. The universe is composed of interacting energy fields, some at rest and some in motion. It is in itself one gigantic hologram of unbelievable complexity. According to the theories of Carl Pribram, a neuroscientist at Stanford University, and David Bohm, a physicist at the University of London, the human mind is also a hologram which attunes itself to the universal hologram by medium of energy exchange, thereby deducing meaning and achieving the state which we all call consciousness. With respect to states of expanded or altered consciousness, such as gateway uses, the process operates in the following way. As energy passes through various aspects of the universal hologram and is holographic as perceived by the electrostatic fields which comprise the human mind, the holographic images being conveyed are projected upon the electrostatic fields of the mind and are perceived or understood to the extent that the electrostatic field is operating at a frequency and amplitude that can harmonize with, and therefore read, the energy carrier wave pattern passing through it. Changes in the frequency and amplitude of the electrostatic field, which comprise the human mind, determines the configuration and hence the character of the holographic energy matrix, which the mind projects to intercept meaning directly from the holographic transmissions of the universe. Then, to make sense of what the holographic image is, quote-unquote, saying to it, the mind proceeds to compare the image just received with itself. Specifically, it does this by comparing the image received with a part of its own hologram, which constitutes memory. By registering differences in geometric form and in energy frequency, the consciousness perceives, see Exhibit 2, next page, as physiologist Keith Floyd puts it, contrary to what everyone knows is so, it may not be the brain that produces consciousness, but rather consciousness that creates the appearance of the brain. Number 15, brain in phase. The consciousness process is most easily envisaged if we picture the holographic input with a three-dimensional grid system superimposed over it, such that all the energy patterns contained within can be described in terms of three-dimensional geometry using mathematics to reduce the data to two-dimensional form. Ventov states that scientists suspect that the human mind operates on a simple binary go, no, go system, as do all digital computers. Therefore, once it superimposes a three-dimensional matrix over holographic information, it wishes to interpret and reduce that information mathematically to two-dimensional form. It can completely process it using its fundamental binary system, just as any computer made by the hand of man can process volumes of data and make various comparisons between the data and information stored in its digital memory. Our minds operate in the same way, perceiving by comparison only. Ventov states the proposition this way: our whole reality is constructed by constantly making such comparisons. Whenever we perceive something, we always perceive differences only. In states of expanded consciousness, the right hemisphere of the human brain, in its holistic, nonlinear, and nonverbal mode of functioning, acts as the primary matrix or receptor for this holographic input, while by operating in phase or coherence with the right brain, the left hemisphere provides the secondary matrix through its binary computer-like method of functioning to screen further the data by comparison and reduce it to a discrete two-dimensional form. Number 16, evaluation. To the extent that Gateway succeeds in bringing about a refinement of energy matrix of the mind, it succeeds in expanding or altering human consciousness so that it can perceive without recourse to the intercession of the physical senses, such that ever more of the universal hologram, not of course accessible by sense perception, can ultimately be perceived and understood. Marilyn Ferguson has written that the theories of Pribram and Bohm appear to account for all transcendental experience, paranormal events, and even normal perceptual oddities. She goes on to say of Pribram, currently, he is proposing a startling, all-encompassing model that is generating considerable excitement among those intrigued by the mysteries of human consciousness. His holographic model marries brain research to theoretical physics, an account for normal perception, and simultaneously takes the paranormal and transcendental experiences out of the supernatural by explaining them as part of nature. Like certain strange discoveries of quantum physics, the radical reorientation of this theory suddenly makes sense of paradoxical sayings of mystics throughout the ages. Number 17, self-cognition. To complete our outline of the process by which the mind achieves and exercises consciousness, we must also describe the mechanism which accounts for the aspect of human thought that differentiates it from the consciousness of plants or animals, i.e. self-cognition. Humans not only know, but they know that they know. They are able to monitor the process of their own thinking and maintain an awareness of it. Moreover, they can conduct a comparative. The functions of brain hemispheres in consciousness, example 2. The example is the right hemisphere consciousness grid. It reduces three-dimensional holographic images to two-dimensional go, no-go images. The left hemisphere is the consciousness grid, and it acts like the mind's computer software to reduce input from right hemisphere to verbal symbols and concepts. The right hemisphere reduces three-dimensional images to two-dimensional images and creates the go, no-go, A, B binary, and the left hemisphere creates the input for hemispheric use in the right brain of the symbols and concepts that can be interpreted as creative. Where you at, little one? Oh, she's rolled off somewhere else. So that's her opinion on the subject, I gather. She'll let you know how she felt about it. All right. Exhibit 2 on page 10. Assessment evaluating. Oh, I'm sorry. This was cut off. Let me see. Moreover, they can conduct a comparative assessment, evaluating the function of their thought processes against various objective standards that they have adopted. Human consciousness can do this because it has the capacity to duplicate aspects of its own hologram, project them out, perceive that the projection, put it through comparison with the memory aspect, where its evaluation standards. Evening, Dank, how you doing? Hope all is well with you as well. Put it through comparison with the memory aspect, where its evaluation standards of measures are stored of its own hologram and measure or sense the differences using three-dimensional geometry, and then binary go-no-go pulse to yield verbal cognition about the self. Once again, it's an assessment of objective standards that any one person has adopted, and then human consciousness can do this because it has the capacity to duplicate the aspects of its own hologram, project them out, perceive that the projection, put it through comparison with the memory aspect, where its evaluation standards of measure are stored, and measure or sense the difference between them using the three-dimensional geometry, and then a binary that we've talked about, the go-no-go pulse, to yield verbal cognition about the self. Number 18, the time-space dimension. Up to this point, our discussion of the gateway process has been relatively simple. Sorry, let me read that again and give you the proper response to this. Time-space dimension. Up to this point, our discussion of the gateway process has been relatively simple and easy to follow. Okay. Now the fun begins. I like that. Gateway involves more than just perception of those aspects of the universal hologram which can be accessed in the dimension of time-space as we know it. To explain how and why human consciousness can be brought to transcend the limitations of time-space is the next task which must be addressed. To do this, we must first appreciate what time, space, and space are in order to understand how the dimension that they constitute can be transcended. Physicists define time as a measurement of energy or force in motion. In other words, it is measurement of change. However, in order for energy to be in motion, it must first be limited in some way, within the confines of some sort of vibratory pattern. So that's confinement gives it the capacity for being contained at a specific location, which it is distinguishable from other locations, space. Energy, which is not confined, is force without limit, without dimension, without the limits of form. It is infinity and cannot move beyond. There is nothing beyond infinity. And therefore, there's nothing outside of the dimension of time. It is also beyond space because that concept implies that a specific energy form is limited to a specific location and is absent from other locations. But if in fact the energy is in a state of infinity, there are no boundaries, no here to differentiate from there, no sense of area. Energy is infinite. Energy is infinity. It means energy uniformly extended without limit. It has no beginning, no end, no location. It is consciousness, force, the fundamental primal power of existence without form, a state of infinite being. Energy in infinity is said to be completely at rest, and therefore cannot generate holograms so long as it remains utterly inactive. It retains an inherent capacity for consciousness in that it can receive and passively perceive holograms generated by energy in motion out in the various dimensions which make up the created universe. But it cannot be perceived by consciousness operating in the active universe. Energy in this state of inactive infinity is termed by physicists as energy in its absolute state, or simply, as we shall know it from here forward, as the absolute. between the absolute and the material universe in which we experience our physical existence are various intervening dimensions to which human consciousness in altered states of being may gain access. Theoretically, human consciousness may continue to expand the horizon of its perceptual capability until it reaches the dimension of the absolute, at which point perception stops, because the absolute generates no holograms of or about itself. Number 19. Intervening dimensions. Since the absolute is conscious energy in infinity, i.e. without boundaries, it occupies every dimension to include the time-space dimension in which we have our physical existence, but we cannot perceive it. It overlays everything as do many of our intervening gradients, or dimensions throughout which the energies of the universe pass on their way to and from their home in the state of infinity, the absolute. To enter these intervening dimensions, human consciousness must focus with such intense coherence that the frequency of the energy pattern, which comprises that consciousness, i.e. the brainwave output, can accelerate to the point where the resulting frequency pattern, if displayed on an oscilloscope, for example, would look virtually like a solid line. Achievement of this state of altered consciousness sets the stage for perception of non-time space dimensions because of the operation of principle in physics known as Planck's distance. This is an aspect of quantum mechanics which applies to the fact that any excuse me, my apologies. This is an aspect of quantum mechanics which applies to the fact that any oscillating frequency, such as a brainwave, reaches 2 points of complete rest, which constitutes the boundaries of each individual oscillation. Why am I having a problem with that word? Oscillation, Jesus. I.e., movement up or down. Without these points of rest, an oscillating wave pattern would be impossible, since the points of rest are required to permit the energy to change direction, and thus continue vibrating between rigid limits. And let me actually pull this up, because I do have a sine wave oscillation I can pull up just so you can visualize what that looks like. And what they're talking about, the rest, is that drop in the bottom. Oh, the producer is zooming around my legs. Apparently my legs are the scratching post currently. Okay. And boy, she does have hopping ninja ability. Isn't that amazing? You can't see it, but I can feel it. That is what they're talking about, an oscillation. And the amplitude of a straight line and that's a wider amplitude. And the slower the speed, or the faster the speed, it's the higher the frequency, or the lower the frequency by the distance between those waveforms. Let's see, oh yeah, there it is. Oh, hello there. That's how that works. And that would be the line they're talking about. And that's kind of what we like to have. It is very Zen in a certain manner, and they've talked about in the reference that the practices of the gateway process can bring you to a Zen-like state much quicker than even some who have been practicing for 20 years can get to. Focus 15 and beyond are well beyond the Zen atmosphere. Is that how you feel about it? Really? Okay. I'll take that note and I'll remember it. Everybody feels a certain way. Okay. Where were we? Oh, without these points of rest. Excuse me. Let me let you read this as well. Without these points of rest, an oscillating wave pattern would be impossible, since the points of rest are required to permit the energy to change direction and thus continue vibrating between rigid limits. But it is also true that when, for an infinitesimally brief instant, that energy reaches one of its 2 points of rest, it clicks out of time-space and joins infinity. See Exhibit 3, next page. The critical step out of time-space occurs when the speed of the oscillation drops below 10 to the minus 33 power centimeters per second Planck's distance. To use Planck's distance, which is 10 to the minus 33 power centimeter, we enter, in effect, a new world. To return to our case in point, the human consciousness wave pattern reaches such high frequency that the pattern of clickouts becomes so close together that there is virtual continuity in it. Then a portion of that consciousness is actually postulated to establish and maintain its information collection functions in those dimensions located between time, space, and the absolute. Thus, as the almost continuous clickout pattern establishes itself in continuous phase at speeds below Planck's distance, but before reaching the state of total rest, human consciousness passes through the looking glass of time-space, after the fashion of Alice beginning her journey into Wonderland. The gateway experience, with its associated hemisync technique, is apparently designed, if used systematically and patiently, to enable human consciousness to establish a coherent pattern of perception in those dimensions where speed below Planck's distance apply. This holds true irrespective of whether the individual is exercising his consciousness while in his physical body, or whether he is doing so after having separated that consciousness from the physical body, i.e. the so-called out-of-body state mentioned earlier. Subatomic particles, section 20. The behavior of subatomic particles provides an interesting example of the phenomena of clicking out, discussed in the preceding paragraphs. In an article prepared for Science Digest magazine, Dr. John Gliedman mentions the way in which subatomic particles communicate with each other once their energy fields become entrained as a result of colliding with each other. The communications concerned is, of course, postulated to be occurring during the click-out phase, in the oscillation of the energy fields comprising the subatomic particles concerned. It is this cause which accounts for the cross-communication, at which what in terms of time-space velocities would seem to involve speeds in excess of light. In reality, Einstein's theory of relativity is not being invalidated, but rather, the communication concerned is taking place outside the dimension of time-space, to which the theory of relativity is strictly confined. Specifically, Dr. Gliedman tells us quantum theory postulates a kind of long-range Siamese twin effect whenever 2 subatomic particles collide and then go their different ways. Even when the particles are halfway across the universe from each other, it says they instantaneously respond to each other's actions. And we know this to be true, whereas it was only a theory then. Indeed, regarding attempts to quantify what is known as the behavior of energy in dimensions, and by the way, Einstein used to call that spooky physics, at a distance. Apparently outside the time-space, Bentov speaks about courageous physicists who are working on hypothetical particles called tachyons, which move at the speed of higher than light. The speed of tachyons starts just above the speed of light and ranges all the way to infinite velocities, meaning light existing at an infinite velocity. Excuse me while I see what the producer would like. Oh, you zooming? Yes? You telling me what you're thinking? Okay, you just want to chew on my foot. I understand. And you want to look cute doing it. I understand that too. Okay, come here. Okay, you. You're making this incredibly hard to do cautiously because you're so tiny. Okay. 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 We're just gonna do that there. Okay. Yeah, you should run away. Oh, now you're gonna zoom back. Okay. Apparently that's what we're doing tonight. That's fine. We are connected to all part of the greater whole. True that. Clearly, this is, I mean, it's one thing to think it, it's another thing to feel it, but to validate the knowledge of a greater existence between us all, connected in the null, on beyond, where there is no hologram, where it just is forever. Infinity and beyond. Dimensions in between. Now that we have postulated the legitimacy of the assertion that the energy forms which comprise consciousness can move beyond the time-space dimension, we need to turn our attention to the energy forms which, I'll come back to that, inhabit those dimensions between time and space and the absolute. In doing so, we may better perceive the form that reality assumes when we encounter in it those immediate dimensions. In this context, Bentov tells us, the causal relationship between events breaks down. Movement becomes jerky rather than smooth. Time and space may become grainy or chunky. Perhaps a piece of space can be traversed by a particular matter in any direction without necessarily being synchronized with a piece of it, of time. In short, a pair of events will occur in either time or space, the pair not being connected casually, but by a random fluctuation. Let's see what the image shows. The absolute in infinity. The clicked out portion of oscillating energy traversing intermediate dimensions. And the absolute of infinity being on the outside of that, on either side. Basically, the reality being in the reflection inside of the tube caused by the actuation from the absolute. The folding and turn and its cataclysmic, explosive matter that sends a precursor wave of light. Yes. She's so vocal, it's so cute. Anyway. She's not in any trauma or trouble, by the way. She's just yelping for fun. She's had to learn that. It's funny. And yes, she's definitely having fun running around my feet. What Bentov means is that inside the dimension of time-space, where both concepts apply in a generally uniform way, there's a proportional relationship between them. A certain space can be covered by energy moving in either particle or wave form in a certain time, assuming a specific velocity virtually anywhere in the time-space universe. The relationship is neat and predictable. However, in the intermediate dimensions beyond time-space, the limitations imposed on energy to put it into a state of oscillating motion are not uniform, as they are in our physical universe. A myriad of various distortions and incongruities are thus likely to be encountered when such that our nice, neat assumptions concerning the relationship between time and space as we know it in this dimension do not apply. But even more important, access is opened to both the past and the future when the dimension of current time-space is left behind. Section number 22, Special Status, Out-of-Body Experience. Although human consciousness can, with enough practice, move beyond the dimension of time-space and interference with other energy systems in other dimensions, the entire process is appreciably enhanced if that consciousness can be detached in large measure from the physical body before such interference is attempted. Once an individual becomes proficient in the technique of out-of-body movement and then reaches the point where he is able to break out of time-space while out of their body, they gain the advantage of clicking out part of this enhanced consciousness, while starting from a base located much closer to the dimensions with which he wishes to communicate. In other words, since he is starting from a point much higher up, quote unquote, to use an analogy from the time-space context, that part of his consciousness involved in clicking out will have that much more easy time to interact in dimensions beyond time-space, because less time is required to traverse the intervening layers. Moreover, oh, her little muse, yes, she's very sweet. The disharmony in Earth could be why we're being visited. I believe, yes, there's all sorts of things, or maybe we're visiting ourselves. In other words, since it is starting from a point much higher up, to use an analogy from time-space context, the part of consciousness involved in clicking out will have that much more time to interact in dimensions beyond time-space, because less time is required to traverse the intervening layers. Moreover, once the individual is able to project his consciousness beyond time-space, that consciousness would logically tend to entrain its frequency output with the new energy environment to which it is exposed, therein greatly enhancing the extent to which the individual's altered consciousness may be further modified to achieve a much heightened point of focus and much more refined oscillating pattern. As a result, a self-reinforcing process should ensue whereby the farther the consciousness in the out-of-body state can be projected beyond the time-space dimension, the more its level of energy output would be enhanced, thus promoting the potential for still further travel. The tentative conclusion to be drawn is that the out-of-body state may be regarded as an extremely effective way of accelerating the process of enhancing consciousness and of interfering with dimensions beyond time-space. If the practitioner of the gateway technique has a choice of concentrating on achieving and exploiting the out-of-body experience as opposed to concentrating his achieving and exploiting the out-of-body experience as opposed to concentrating his full efforts on expanding his consciousness exclusively from a physical base, the former would appear to promise much faster and more impressive successes than does the latter. Yes, if we are all part of the greater whole, we are, in fact, visiting ourselves. What did this say? I missed it. Number 23, absolute in perspective. It may be helpful at this point to pause and recap the major aspects of our intellectual journey from time-space to the realm of the absolute. We have spoken at some length concerning the incredibly complex hologram which is created by the intersection of energy patterns generated by the totality of all dimensions of the universe, time-space included. We have noted that our minds constitute energy fields which interact with various aspects of the hologram to deduce information which is ultimately processed through the left hemisphere of our brains to reduce it to a form that we employ for the process we call thinking. Smile for the camera. Smile for the camera, yes. There you go. Yeah, you getting out of here now? You like it behind the scenes better? Or you just want to press buttons? You're trying to press buttons, I see. By the way. Oh, yeah, no? Oh, okay. You're too spunky right now. Okay. But you want to be up here. No, you want to be down there. Okay. She's still deciding where she wants to be. All right. Oh, she's climbing back up. No? Want to climb back up? Make a decision, young one. Make a decision. We have noted that our minds constitute energy fields which interact with various aspects of this hologram to deduce information which is ultimately processed through the left hemisphere of our brains to reduce it to a form that we employ for the process which we call thinking. We have implied that this hologram is the finite embodiment in active energy form of the infinite consciousness of the absolute. Let me read that to you again. We have implied that this hologram is the finite embodiment in active energy form of the infinite consciousness of the absolute. Break it down. We are the consciousness of the absolute. Everything is. Just a brief moment. Sorry. Ruby, everyone. Ruby. She is a sweetie pie. She's very much a sweetie pie. And she's very teeny. Her mom was teeny too. Excuse me, don't end the show. No, that's not your call. No, you at least gotta talk to the the EP on that one. Jesus. Already. Taking center stage and then. Hey buddy. Speaking of which, the other one's over to my left. It is the title we assign to that vast pool of energy in a state of perfect rest over which the physical universe... Oops. Are you trying to get over to the audio now? Perfect rest over which the physical universe is layered and from whence it comes. Incidentally, to describe this, Bentov uses the analogy of a very deep sea, comparing the still depths of the sea to the dimension of the absolute, while assigning the storm-tossed waves above to represent the physical universe which we are familiar. The slightly agitated currents of the sea can be found between the turbulent surfaces, and the totally still depths represent energy in the process of either going into rest, i.e. approaching infinity, or coming out of rest. Well, you know what? We are at the 3-hour mark this evening, and this one is telling me that I should probably break this up into 2, which I think that's a good idea, little one. So, we'll take it from here tomorrow night. Same time, same channel. And I think this one is trying to make her way up to the camera. I'm not really sure. You want to just get up in there? Is that what it is? Just gonna get up in there? Okay, you're done. You're done. She got shy. She got shy all of a sudden. Yes, she is. She is a very... She's got that little, like, cotton fluff, too. Not sure the EP likes her, or the associate likes her taking his spot over here behind me, but he doesn't seem too bothered. All right, little one. Anyhow. Seems like... yeah, she is. She kind of just took charge immediately. Well, it's kind of been a journey. Except the journey has only just begun, really. Tomorrow night, we will conclude with part 2 of the gateway process. And I'll likely add in more stream of consciousness story in the form of dream states. That being said, I urge each and every one of you to seek your own state of absolute. A continuity of waveform with the all that we are all from. And recognize that outside of the power of the obelisk, there is a vast, omnipotent, omniversal force of energy on the edge of the click out, just up there and just down there at the height and at the bottom of reality's waveform. Now, I'm not talking hoo-ha, rather science and from a report to the military, the Department of Defense, and a file that was kept secret and classified for many years. And when I urge you folks to take heed and recognize that there is more, that it's up to us. No, she was sniffing the can. There's nothing left. She could be hyped now. I urge each and every one of you to reject and to ignore the mental prisons that hold us within a rigid frame, that would have us argue and fight with our neighbors, though we throw our problems at a mirror. It is only to force that energy that is ours up a funnel, to provide those who are aware of all of this, a small few, but now more, who may pervert, convert, corrupt, or abuse what they know about the matters of reality, because it benefits them. Step outside of the mental prison known as the obelisk, the system and visual image implying power structure. And once you step outside of it, it doesn't exist. And we let the ben that is separate at the top, that pyramid, fall to the ground. And with this imaginary sledgehammer of mirth, I hand you the tool. Please take it from me and smash down the wall. Because, my friends, it's up to you and I and anyone who becomes aware that we are living more than just ourselves, but rather all time, the future, the past, the now, in many levels and layers, in ways that we have to break our norms to experience. And even then, one might reject. Because, as the Matrix would tell us, the movie, most folks reject seeing the Matrix as imagination, instead of recognizing that we build the hologram, that the particle physics shows that we are in the hologram, and that we are a computation of the hologram for the hologram, because we are the hologram of the absolute, which means we are the absolute. And with that, my friends, I bid you good evening, and I urge you one last thought. And as usual, I'm sure you know what that is. Look up. Thank you so much for being here. I do appreciate you. Thanks for being so kind about the new producer. We'll see if we can get her under control tomorrow night, or whatever. Maybe she'll probably do more. She's probably gonna do more. She gets more comfortable, I'm sure. Anyhow, we'll continue on with this, starting from section 24 of the full report on the gateway process, how it functions, and its report to the Department of the Military. This piece of literature is found on the CIA's library website. The release specifically via FOIA assertions and requests that I'm reading to you now is a re-release by the actual Monroe Institute and can be obtained through them directly, and also in a very niche portion of the CIA library online. As usual, this is not conspiracy theory. These are formerly classified pieces of evidence and information, reports to command chain. And as we well know, that means they were testing this all. I'll see you all tomorrow night as we finish off and read much more about the absolute in perspective. Sleep well, have a great night, and thank you so much for being here. And hey, thank you to whomever donated tonight. Patrons are flipping awesome. Peace out, y'all. Be safe, be kind, have fun, whichever comes first, or all at the same time. But most importantly, look up. Yeah.